Alright, you know what time it is. It's time to rank those Season 14 episodes of The Simpsons. I took all 22 episodes, eliminated 9 of them right out the gate to get our 13 semifinalists. Then I asked my friend with the worst taste which were his 3 favorite episodes, and eliminated those to get our 10 finalists. Here are my top 10 Simpsons episodes of Season 14. So how do people feel about the satire in Mr. Spritz Goes to Washington these days? Their points about do-nothing Congress and biased media outlets feel downright quaint by today's standards, almost like Baby's first political satire. On the other hand, it's fun seeing the Simpsons family navigate the political system firsthand, bringing their chaotic energy to all this bureaucratic nonsense. The episode builds nicely too. We get plenty of household stuff in the beginning with the overhead jets, then bringing in Cookie Kwan for some real estate jokes. Love this Ralph exchange. This central conflict grounds the story with something substantial. This would be way less interesting if the Simpson family just latched on to an existing Krusty narcissism plot. Not all the Krusty campaign jokes land, and some of the stuff we've seen before with Mr. Burns, but Krusty provides his own unique spin on all these tropes. Mr. Burns may have gotten a Charles Darwin actor, but did he land on the moon? Didn't think so. I'm probably underrating this one because I am just so exhausted, but if you're looking for actual commentary in Season 14, Mr. Spritz Goes to Washington is the place to get it. How I Spent My Strummer Vacation is the last episode showrun by Mike Scully, and I think his tenure went out on a strong note. This episode is fun. These kinds of guest star showpieces live and die by their individual vignettes, and they are all entertaining and memorable. Love how eagerly Elvis Costello suggests the bass, Homer imitating Lenny Kravitz's style, Mick Jagger teaching dance. I especially love Tom Petty's annoyance over their love of mindless generic rock. Sure, there's no actual story in Act 2, but it's a nice way to highlight Homer's obsessive joy. Aww, look at how excited they are in their final performance. I also appreciate how we get to Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. We've done this family disappointed storyline so many times. It's refreshing how they subvert our expectations, bypassing all of that angst. Act 3 does fall into the typical patterns we've seen over the past few seasons. It's basically a repeat of A Tale of Two Springfields. Yeah, I guess it's not the most substantial story in the world, but like I said at the beginning, it's fun, and it uses its guest star as well. That's the real goal of this kind of thing. Okay, so I promise I really enjoy I'm Spelling as Fast as I Can, but it's landing at number 8 because it's kind of basic. Kinda feels like the prototypical Lisa academic story, you know? Complete with a third act ethical dilemma and a wacky Homer B-plot. That being said, there are so many jokes that still bounce around my head to this very day. Booberella and how Ray Romano is suing to prevent airing of the movie, Like a Rib, Nelson and Martin at Space Camp, the Rib Witch drug sequence, how do you spell AC/DC, and a hot plate. George Plimpton repeats this hot plate line like 3 times, it's gonna get lodged in your brain. He's awesome in this role, by the way. He brings so much silly energy to this stuffy character archetype. I even enjoy how everyone in Springfield celebrates Lisa when she returns. They don't go full Charlie Brown like in other examples. I don't know, the more I talk about this, the higher I want to rank it. I think if her relationship with Homer were stronger, and there were actual conflict and adversity to Lisa's journey along the way, I would probably care about this one more. But I can't knock anyone who has this in their top 3. Much like Jim Neighbors, I'm Spelling as Fast as I Can is way cool. Excuse Me While I Miss the Sky is one of those awesome secondary character showcase episodes. The documentary framing device allows them to bounce around to various Springfield Elementary kids, doing jokes with Ralph and Milhouse, before settling into our main storylines with Bart and Lisa. And then Lisa's light pollution problem expands to include all of Springfield. Love this stargazing sequence in particular. The story is well plotted too, with Lisa's light shenanigans playing into Bart and Milhouse's scheme to steal a hood ornament. I do wish we got more out of Bart's B-plot. We get the general gist of his problems with the bullies, but there's not a lot to it. He just sets up a plan, runs away, then comes back and does it later. I feel like Act 3 could use a couple extra minutes. This plot point about everyone losing their minds feels rushed and underdeveloped comedically. To be fair, they're packing a lot into it, with the documentary and concurrent storylines. The bright side is that there's always something new and interesting happening, some new angle of Springfield to explore. I'm not surprised that they brought this guy back for a sequel. This documentary format brought out the best in our favorite characters. Welcome back to the top 10 Treehouse of Horror. Now this one is definitely being buoyed by Send in the Clones, which I rated as the #1 post-classic Treehouse segment. This thing is pretty much perfect. Such a wonderful showcase of Homer's laziness, scheming, idiocy, and penchant for violence. This sequence just kills me, how long they draw out these questions. Then how Homer so casually tosses the hammock out afterward, so good. Unfortunately, the middle segment doesn't do much for me. It's not awful or anything. I really enjoy this playground joke, the song, and the piano versus pianee. But the time travel solution doesn't suit the story at all. Resetting the problem is a clunky solution narratively. And ending on this Moe joke is a baffling decision. The Island of Dr. Hibbert has a nice mix of suspenseful buildup and fun animal shenanigans. It's so entertaining seeing which animals were picked out for which characters, and their individual designs. This is one Halloween segment that I wish could have been a full episode. Like, the Marge investigation angle works, and they do a great job getting Homer involved, but because they build up the suspense so meticulously, they kind of run out of time for the fun animal shenanigans. Makes me wish I had a time machine. Aha! Now to get me some caveman hookers. A Star is Born Again is the most surprising episode of Season 14, in that we get this one-off romance centering around a guest star playing a movie star. This thing should be the definition of disposable, but it's told in such a charming and captivating way, it totally wins me over. Marissa Tomei absolutely crushes this performance as Sarah Sloane. She brings a real warmth to the character, where Sarah and Ned's unlikely relationship feels genuine and believable. At the same time, we get all of the fun Hollywood stuff that comes with her, fighting the director with Ned, bringing Helen Fielding to their book club to show off sophisticated British humor, Ned's fears of Hollywood in general, highlighted by this dream sequence. I think Act 3 could definitely be stronger. His inner conflict over premarital sex isn't especially deep. He sort of does it on a whim. And how the relationship fizzles out is such a bummer. But despite some execution problems, I really appreciate that the writers went here with Flanders, that even he struggles with his religious beliefs. A Star is Born Again manages to challenge Ned Flanders in a substantial way while still maintaining the sweetness and charm of a magical summer romance. Speaking of secondary character romances, Special Edna is such a wonderful Edna Krabappel piece, yet another example of why we love rooting for her so much. How it establishes her frustrations with Skinner up front, then brings Bart into the story with their study session and pity date. I like how supportive Bart is of Mrs. K, that he's seen her problems in her personal life firsthand and wants to do something to cheer her up. It's ridiculous that the contest people know who Bart Simpson is, but hey, I buy their rationale for picking her. We get some solid Epcot parody stuff, lots of rides and corporate sponsorship jokes. This is probably the weakest aspect. Feels like they're just filling in some time while we wait for Skinner, but the material is memorable enough. Principal Skinner's devotion to Agnes is ratcheted up to 11 in this one, but unlike in later seasons, it feels purposeful. By Act 3, when he needs to break himself free, it truly feels like an important moment. We had all been waiting for this, and the writers did not disappoint. Maybe this is unfair, but the aftermath of Skinner Krabappel does weaken the warm fuzzies a bit, especially since he attached himself to Agnes again. Special Edna is another one of those that's better in a vacuum and to enjoy the magic for what it is. I love C.E.D'oh. It's my go-to example of a middle-era episode that does almost everything well. It starts out strong, with some walking gags, sign jokes, and then the learning annex. We get the hilarious Strip for Your Wife class by Dr. Hibbert with that baby oil, and then we transition to this smarmy business guys course. Can't argue with an episode that throws Hans Moleman out a window. It's fun getting this super motivated version of Homer, how he observes issues in the workplace and manipulates his way to the top. It takes advantage of how carried away Homer can get by propaganda, but then in Act 3 understands that lazy Homer will quickly burn himself out. I love how Mr. Burns arrives looking for this big Act 3 showdown, fails in hilarious fashion, and Homer just hands him that blanket. Dude, Homer's already tired of this storyline. Where were you? Oh yeah, trying to take a lot of opium. God, Mr. Burns is the best in this episode. It makes me yearn for the early days when he was king of the mountain. My only knock against C.E.D'oh is that some of the plot elements feel awfully familiar, that this is a spin-off of like 4 different episodes. It's pretty derivative, you know? Then again, if the complaint is that this episode feels too much like the classic era, that's not a bad place to be. I love this episode so much. Great concept, clever plot points, and memorable jokes. What more could you ask for? I love the simplicity of the concept, this Homer scheme of hiring a private eye to get to know Lisa. It suits his laziness as a parent and fits the character dynamic we've seen over the years. Lisa's birthday present serves as an amusing inciting incident. This video is so hilariously Homer, how badly he bungles it. McNuggets. Dexter Colt serves as a top-notch antagonist. Look at how he gets things done in Act 2, putting the screws to people like Principal Skinner and Nelson, how he thinks someone's already gotten to Ralph, or that he bought silver bullets thinking Lisa's a werewolf. His blunt delivery makes him the perfect comedic foil for Homer throughout Act 2 and the conclusion. This isn't the deepest Homer-Lisa story ever, but they do get plenty of face time together and get into the conflict in more detail when they go on the lam. We also get Rock Strongo, Lance Uppercut, and these disguise jokes. Plus, this laser pointer callback. Good stuff. They do have some trouble demonstrating Homer's character growth in the conclusion, and stumbling across the animals is pretty darn coincidental. So that's why it got bumped down to number 2. But all in all, The Dad Who Knew Too Little is an excellent outing and deserves way more recognition as a modern classic. Okay, so I would never call Moe Baby Blues a perfect episode or anything. There are a couple plot elements that feel gimmicky, a few jokes here or there that don't land. But my god, are Moe and Maggie such a great duo. It's the kind of character pairing that doesn't immediately come to mind, but the moment they start interacting, all those earlier nitpicks go right out the window. Maggie's always had an adventurous or mischievous edge to her, so I totally get why she would bond with someone like Moe, enjoy his storytime rendition of The Godfather. And Moe does a great job meeting her halfway, that he doesn't really get babies, but tries to relate to her in his clumsy way. I admit, this scene was the one that really sold me on this concept. It's so adorably in character that this is how he'd play with her. Then we get charming scenes of Moe in fun uncle mode, fighting with Homer and Marge when he goes too far, and ultimately feeling alienated again. Yeah, you could argue that the Fat Tony showdown is the typical Act 3 danger shenanigans to raise the stakes, but I think it's foreshadowed well, and they do a nice job lampshading any plot contrivances. Considering Moe is ready to commit suicide in Act 1, the story needs him to walk into a dangerous situation to profess how much he's changed. Maggie saves Moe, Moe saves Maggie. It's the oldest thematic trick in the book, and they pull it off really well here. While I would say The Dad Who Knew Too Little is consistently funnier, the impeccable character dynamics of Moe Baby Blues makes it the best episode of Season 14. Just missing out on this list were The Bart of War at number 13, then Bart vs. Lisa vs. the Third Grade at number 12, and The Great Louse Detective as the Bubble episode at number 11. I've always sort of liked this Sideshow Bob mystery because of its snappy joke writing and silly plot elements. Some good stuff in here. But it's such a bizarre concept, especially with the Frank Grimes Jr. thing. One of those questionable idea, good execution episodes. As always, let me know in the comments what your favorite episodes of Season 14 are and how you'd rank them. While there are a few this year that I really don't care for, I think Season 14 has a higher ratio of hits than the previous couple. To be honest, I think this is the best top 5 since Season 8. Yeah, you heard me, Season 9. What are you gonna do about it? Next time, we're gonna be visiting the stylish, action-packed Season 15, in which Homer dons homemade armor to fight a bear, creates a mechanical body to fight robots, and becomes Pie Man to teach people a lesson. Spoiler warning, Homer is going to go through a lot of stuff this year. A real roller coaster of emotions. As always, thanks for watching.